सेल्स टीम आपके इंपॉर्टेंट कस्टमर डेटा आपके कॉम्पिटिटर्स को लीक कर देती है या आपकी सेल्स टीम आपकी नहीं कर रही है, आपके सेल्स एजेंट
Today, Jio's optical fiber infrastructure spans over 1.5 million kilometers across India. This immense scale puts us in a league of our own, far ahead of competition. Our extensive optic fiber presence puts us in close proximity to over 200 million premises across India. Yet, providing physical last mile connectivity is a painstaking process in most parts of our country. This leaves millions of potential customers without home broadband due to the complexities and delays involved in extending optical fiber to their premises. This is where Jio Air Fiber, our fixed wireless broadband offering, comes in.
At the same time, the International Energy Agency is predicting a record oil demand this year, up 2.4 million barrels a day from last year, but a much slower growth going into 2024 of only 1 million barrels a day. And fortuitously, the U.S. is supplying a significant amount of that increased oil demand through our increased production.
And do you think a lot of people out there are asking themselves what all this means for the price of gasoline? Because today we have the national average at $3.82. It's been climbing in recent weeks. Should Americans be bracing for a price above $4 a gallon?
I don't think so unless you're living on the West Coast, which is an island unto itself, and we've seen a number of refining problems contribute to higher gasoline prices out there. I only expect gasoline prices between now and Labor Day to increase about 3 to 4 cents a gallon. And after that, as we get into the winter blends of gasoline, which are less expensive for refiners to produce, we should see some easing of prices for the balance of the year.
This, of course, has kind of steeped into the political conversation when we're talking about oil prices or gas prices. The reality is that we have seen this administration really produce or forecast production is at an all-time high. To what extent can the administration control these prices? I mean, I guess it's a conversation we have with every administration. They sort of live and die by the price, but the reality, when you consider all those global factors you just mentioned, how much of it is driven by domestic policy?
Well, very little of it, to be honest, because what the domestic policy does is provide what they want to do during their administration. What the oil industry is concerned about is if we go from a Democratic administration to a Republican and back to Democratic and so forth, there's a lot of uncertainty as to making your long-term plans. When oil companies go and drill in the Gulf of Mexico, it takes 5 to 10 years from the moment they discover a field to bring that on to production and reach the marketplace. So what the oil industry is looking for is for certainty. And with the current administration, what we've seen is really policies that slow down the growth of fossil fuels, even though the number of drilling permits have been increasing. But it took an act of Congress through the Inflation Reduction Act to get the administration to offer up leasing acreage sales over the next couple of years.
Andy Lipow with Lipow Oil Associates. Always good to talk to you. Appreciate the time.
Thanks for having me.
Well, stocks rising across the board today with 30 minutes to go in the trading day, but we're on track for monthly declines, and they may not slow down. Jared Blickery is on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Jared.
Hi there, Shauna. Well, let's go to the Wi-Fi Interactive because I pulled some interesting stats here looking ahead to the month of September, and there you go. We can see September is historically weak for the S&P 500. This chart, which basically rises for 3 of these lines and then declines into the end of the month. We go from different periods, 1950 to 2021, 91 to 21, 2001 to 21. No matter how you slice it and dice it, all of these averages end a little bit lower. Just want to present this from a slightly different point of view. We can also take a look at each month's performance, the average performance over the last 20 years, and also in pre-election years. Now, this is the 3rd year of the presidential cycle. You go all the way back to the 1950s, you will find that the average for September is actually the worst in this 3rd year of presidential cycle. All of this is just to say this is a headwind. This only accounts for about 1/3 of price action in the indices. So it doesn't have to happen this way. But something else really interesting has caught my eye, and this is all 3 indices are reclaiming their 50-day moving averages. The 50-day is just an average of the last 50 days worth of price, but popping over it the way this is happening today in the S&P 500, also the NASDAQ, and also the Dow is actually a pretty rare occurrence. So I did some stats on this, and let me just show you what I found. First, looking to the S&P 500, with a few qualifications, we want to see a rising day, a 50-day moving average, and after it's been stuck below for the last 10 sessions, guess what? We have some pretty positive results right here. Also taking a look at the NASDAQ, more pretty positive results here. So short term, we probably have the inklings for a little bit of a rally here, a little bit of pop, but in the month of September overall, not expecting too much, guys.
All right, we'll wait and see what the next couple of weeks hold. Jared, thank you. Coming up, crypto tokens and platforms are surging today after a federal appeals court sided with an asset manager that hopes to launch the first ever Bitcoin ETF. Grayscale, we break down what this means for the industry on the other side.
Do you have the courage to make 8 lakhs a month, which is 1 crore a year?
Congress is still on recess, but lawmakers are set to be put to the test next month when they return to Capitol Hill. The two sides need to reach a deal on next year's budget by September 30th to avoid a government shutdown. Joining us now for more is Brian Gardner, Stifel Chief Washington Policy Strategist. Brian, it's good to see you here. So I think a lot of people are trying to figure out how likely a government shutdown is going to be, whether or not both sides are going to be able to reach a deal before that September 30th deadline. What do you think?
I think it's pretty likely. I mean, Speaker McCarthy is getting a lot of pressure from the right to shut down the government. He's trying to push back against them, arguing that a shutdown actually hurts the ongoing investigations that are going on into Hunter Biden and related matters. And so it's, he's arguing it's in conservatives' interest to keep the government open. But I don't think that, I'm skeptical that argument is going to hold a lot of water with the conservatives. So I think a shutdown, certainly about 50-50. I'm probably in the 60 to 65% range at this point.
Yeah, Brian, we're less than a month since Fitch came out and downgraded the credit rating for the U.S., specifically citing politics. I mean, how much of that does that play into these negotiations and the consideration of what the impact of a shutdown would look like?
Yeah, so I think it's a talking point for both sides. So those who are arguing against the government shutdown are going to argue